I want to go back here and fix this problem here. I had earlier with this function here. So it's just a syntax issue. So back here, this function we call a named function. So I'm going to comment this out for now. So when you write a function, yeah, it's very easy to make the mistake here. As you can see, I wish I did. So when you pass a function to this forEach method here, when you reference this function here, you don't put any of the parameters here at all. That's why it's very confusing. Okay, you just call that name the function, and then but your function that is outside of it, the named function will receive those 2 parameters or 3 parameters here. Okay, that was the only issue. So you have 3 ways of how you can use a function inside the forEach or the map. Either way. Okay, you use the anonymous function. You use a function call. You call it callback. It's called a callback function. A callback function because actually you return data back. And then you have the lambda expression. Okay, so either of those 3 methods will work just fine. However you want to use it, that's okay. This one here is useful if, let's just say, you want to use that for not just the forEach, but also maybe for the, the map, right? So I could just call the map from here is fine too. If I just say instead of what I have instead of this function here, assuming it's doing the same thing. If it's not, then of course it wouldn't be wouldn't work. Okay. The other ones. Let's see if I have any more thing I want to cover. So the forEach and the map, I already showed you do that. That's a very powerful. And there's something called a what's the term? Functional or function programming. Okay, if you have the term before. Okay, this is the one that they usually use for something like a map. The idea of a functional programming is that you write all your code in functions mostly, and you chain those functions with a dot like this. So for example, the forEach you couldn't do that because I couldn't do well, you could, but I just want to make a point that if you hear the term functional programming, that's it, and the concept of just writing a lot of functions and they do certain things. And the opposite of a functional programming is called a procedural programming. And again, that's beyond the scope of this class, but I just want to mention that. And the map is one of those that is used inside a functional programming. So the next one we want to look at is we remember that we had a string. We had a string, and then okay, I'm gonna go and then comment all these out. Okay, so we don't have to use these. It won't show up on the console, and I'll keep the places here. Okay, and then here, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna use this join. Okay, remember that is in the string we have the split, right? So here I'll put string dot split. This one gives you an array. Okay, returns an array. If you put the array join, give you a string. So it's the reverse of each other. Okay, so these two are quite useful if you want to convert between the two. So here I have an array of 4 elements. If you want to convert this to a string, one way is you would iterate through the string using either the forEach or the map, right? Usually maybe the forEach or the for loop, and then you just say, places I plus places I plus 1, I plus 2, and so on, right? You would get a string out of that. But using the join, it's very easy to do. You just basically issue the command. So here I'm going to say var a new string. We'll call this one will be a string places, and you assign that to the new string. So I'm going to be the places, which is the place array, join. Okay. So if you just do that, and then I'm going to go ahead and console log that string places. You can do both. Console the array as well. The places. Okay. So we print out both of those and see what happens. Okay. Oops. So I'll basically just refresh this. Okay, so you see that the first call is the array, so it has the array with all the elements. The second is a string, so you can see that it puts that into a string. Okay. And notice I didn't put any parameters in here. I could go in here and say join each element here with a special character. Maybe put a space in there. Okay. So you put a space and go back, and you see that now the default, which is the comma, okay, if you don't put its default character, separates it. Now it joins every element with a space. Okay. And if you want to join with a different character, you just put it here. You can say put a dash, then you get a dash. Okay. And then however you choose to do it. Cool. Okay, now you can convert back to an array. You can say here var maybe new places. You can convert a string back, which is the string places. So you can say string places dot split. If you don't put a default here, if you don't put a character in here, let's see if it allows it or not. Usually it's a white space. But we can also here console log the new places. So we'll see what new places looks like. So I'm just doing like convert the array to a string and then convert it back to an array. Okay, so you can see that it has an array, but since we didn't specify any characters in here, this string here has no space in between. There's no white space, so everything is treated as a single element. Okay, so you can see that here. Right. If I go back here and change that dash to a white space, okay, save that again. Go back to it was before with a white space, and I refresh this. It's still right, still as a single element. Because we didn't specify is a parameter here, which delimiter we want to use to split the string. So if you want to say, oh, every white space, or if you had a dash before, then every dash. Okay, so now if you go here, put a space, a white space, and it will find that white space and then basically convert it back to an array. So we got our original array back. Okay, so you can convert between the two. Very powerful, very useful as well. It's kind of like, you remember the JSON and the JSON conversion between a JSON and an object. So those two are useful for that scenario. Let's look here if there's anything we want to cover. The pop and the push, we did that before, right? You push and pop into the array, the end of the array and the front. No, pop and push will be always at the end of the array. Okay. If you want to add it to the front, is the shift and unshift. Okay. So shift will be taken out from the first element. So in this case, for example, if I'm taking places, right? If you select array, what is it called? Shift. Array, no places, dot shift. So I move out the Chicago. I took that out, returns that element, and if I go back and see, you see that you took out the Chicago from that first element. If you want to add it back to the first place, you can't do this, right? If you do places of 0, then you're going to replace that with that Boise will be replaced. You don't want to do that. If you just add it to the front of that list, then you do the unshift. And then you pass the parameter here, or the value. Now you get that Chicago back, and then it tells you that it's there, and it returns the length, or the new length of that array. Okay, so shift, unshift is you add and delete from the front. Pop and push, it's always at the end. Okay? So those are pretty cool. Okay. Well, the other one is the sort. It's very straightforward. Say places. So you want to sort it. I think it's always sorted in ascending order. So right now it's already kind of sorted, except the B and the C are not. So if you sort it, then it just sort the array for you. Okay, if you type in places, you see that it's changed. So that actually affects the array. Okay, sorting affects the array. Same thing with the pop and the push. Shift, unshift, it all affects the array. So we have 20 minutes, and then why don't we write a really simple application here? Maybe just changing what? Something you can calculate. We can have an array, and then we'll use this forEach here as well. No, not maybe the map, right? We want to write an array, and then change the array to do something else, and return something back. So let me comment all these out, even this too. And the very top here, so we have some spaces. Why don't we also notice I have the X here, right? I had it before. It was still okay. You don't have to give it a name, but you can, it's fine. Just ignore it. Why don't we change, write a very common calculation converting from like a Celsius to Fahrenheit, right? Something you might see that all the time. So let's go ahead and create a variable here. Just Celsius, some temperature of, I don't know, 10, 20, 32, 38. Right. It's pretty high, actually. Right. So that's Celsius. And we want to convert that to Fahrenheit. Okay, who knows the conversion formula to convert that to Fahrenheit? Let's see, I think it's like the Celsius times 9.5, right? 9.5 plus 32. Something like that, I can't remember. We'll see if that's correct. Maybe it is. Okay, so to convert that to Celsius, we could do the following. So we're going to do a new Fahrenheit. Did I spell Fahrenheit? I can't spell. And this is going to be the Celsius dot map. Okay, we're returning a new array back of the same type. So we could use one of those three ways. Okay, we could use the very simple one, which is this guy here. We're going to pass each Celsius, so we could put like each degree. And then we'll just take one, and we'll pass that to the anonymous function here. And you see I always put the semicolon here, okay, just so that you know that's the end of that function. And then to return it, you just basically plug this in here, right? Very easy. I just copied that. I think that's correct. We'll just return not the Celsius but the degree, and I think that should be it. So kind of like what we did with the other one. I'm just converting that to Fahrenheit. So now we can just say console log the Celsius as well as the Fahrenheit. Oops, not that one. Okay, very simple calculation here. Okay. So, save this. And that's our new temperature, right? Very simple. Everybody okay here? Good? Okay, let's move on to the next example. We're a little bit complicated here. Not that complicated, but we'll add another one here, down here. Instead of Celsius and things like that, why don't we do something like an array of objects? We learned object last week, right? So, array objects. We do like an array of maybe, example I like to use here, maybe like students, okay? Students. And this is an array of objects. So we're going to have the first object here would be has the name, and this could be like Steve. Okay, and it has the grade. We'll call it grade 1 of 77, grade 2 of 90. Okay, it's the first object. And you can duplicate this like maybe 3 times. And we'll add the second student here. And she's really smart, so I've got 100 on that one. And then maybe like an 85 for this one. One more. Put James in here. Let's say 90, and let's just say I did very poorly here, so we got a 75. Okay, so it's an array of objects, right? So how do you access these data? How do I get Steve's name from here? How would you do it? Okay, we could go back up here and turn these off for now. So you can go back and comment these out, right? Let's do with the students here. Do you remember how to print it out? If you want to print out just the name, I would do what? Students. How to access Steve's name? Any idea? So remember, this is array, and the first element, right? This is one element, so that will be the sub-0, right? Sub-0. And then now inside the sub-zero you have is an object of 3 properties. So object, you can use either the dot notation, right, or the array subscript. Either way is fine. Since these are all words, no numbers, I could just access its name directly from there. Okay, so if I save that and then go back to my screen and refresh, you should see that get Steve. Okay. To get that name, I could do the same thing. I should like console that again. I want to get his grade. I could also do this. Grade 1. Okay. And you see that I also got his grade. Okay. So either way is fine. Just make sure that if you use the square brackets, you have to reference as a string. If you do this, I'm not sure that works. Okay. Say that's not, it cannot find that key, even though you didn't put here as a string. You have to reference it as a string here. Okay, so let's write a function to loop through this array here, and maybe we'll take the average of these 2 grades, and if it's more than a certain grade, then the student passed, otherwise the student fails, right? Very simple calculation. So I'm going to go here, and then we have a function. Oh, first one, we want to say, yeah, so return a function, right? Or return a new array. So we'll just say new students. Or a new array, doesn't matter what you call it, doesn't matter. No list, maybe. So it's going to be the students map. Okay, and then back to this function again. So I'm going to pass same thing, the item, and also the yeah, just every item. You don't need the index, and then the equal sign, and then that curly. Okay. So I'm passing an item here. Remember that the item here is always the first element. I'm passing the whole thing here. Okay. If this is an array of objects of array, you have to go deep down until you find it. So notice that when I pass this in here, it's an object. So in here I could go and I could do something like item dot map, and then you keep going, right? Because it's an object. But I don't want to do that, so we're just going to stop here at this level. So now I'm looking at this object here. Okay, so I want to look at his grades, grade 1 and grade 2, and get the average, and compare it with a number. So we could put the number in here if you want, or out here, it doesn't matter. You could just say, so now I would just say var average is the item, right? I don't have to reference the item 0 or whatever it is, because it's not an array. It's the actual object. So I'm looking at this one already. Remember, it passed every element one at a time to it. So it passed the item with 0, student 0 here. So item dot grade 1, right, plus item dot grade 2, and then you just basically divide it by 2, right, to get the average. Since we know that's the total number, we get the average. And then we say if average is greater than or equal to, let's just say that 80 is a passing grade, right? If it's greater than that, then we want to return return an array object back, right? You could say student, the name, item.name, so that's Steve, for example. And the second parameter here, it could be anything, it doesn't have to be the same here. You can have, let's just say, pass is true, or pass, how you want to call it. If it's more than 80, then you pass. Else, else return object of name item.name, and then pass is false. Is that right? Just do a full factor here. Okay. So look at the first one, get his grade 77 in the plus 90 divided by 2. You compare with that if it's 80 or not. If it is, then Steve passed or Steve is failed. False. It does it for each of them, and then you're done. Okay, and then finally here, we're outside here, so we can print to the console. Print the original list, which is student. Also print the new list. New students. Okay, and we'll see if this yields a some correct results. Okay, so we have two objects, which is kind of hard to see. If you want to modify the log here to what I showed you last time, is the table. You put table here instead of log, since this object. Usually you have a better view of the data. Okay, so you see that they all pass, right? They all pass. What if you lower this to like this, just to say, make that a 90, okay? And then, so now we see that only Sabrina passed. I'm not playing favoritism here, guys. Okay, so again, back to how we chose map instead of the forEach. Okay, if you use forEach, then you have to, instead of return here, you have to actually add the array here equal to that instead of the return. Any questions how this was done? Now notice if you look at this, right, you see that this part and this part is almost the same. The only difference is the pass or fail, right, the true or false. Okay, so I'm comparing if this is greater than or equal to 90, then true, otherwise it's false. So if you look at this, you can actually rewrite this whole thing here. So you can replace this whole line here. Just to show you how this can be done, I could just use one statement in here. Okay, put it here, and let me comment these out. Okay, to show you some shortcut to get you thinking. Because this is either true or false. Remember that we use some type of conditional operation like this, you get either a true or false. So we call this a truly or falsely value, right? So I could just put that here. Okay? Because that part will return a true or false. So I don't have to compare, oh, if this is greater or not, I just do it here. If it's greater than 90, I get a true, otherwise I get a false. Okay? So very, very short. So now I can change this. Let's just say make that instead of 90, make that 85. Let's see if there are any improvements in there. Okay, you see that's still the same, but I do get the same result. So it does show you that it works. If I go back to 75, okay, see that they all passed, right? So see how short it gets. And you can even go further by saying, you know what, I can do all this in one line. So you can put this whole thing here, and then put it here. Of course, I don't. You can see that it's now just one line, and that would still work. I put in, back to 90, right? And it still works just fine. Okay, so when you see something like this, average is you see something you compare like this, and you return something similar. You can put that into a single return statement. Okay, just makes your code look a little bit more advanced as well as more professional looking. So it makes you, whoever it is looking at your code, kind of think twice about your skills. Okay, I think that's all. That's all the time that we have left. So if you encounter any problems, anything that you want me to cover in next class meeting, please let me know. I know it has a lot of more stuff you can do with this. If you really want to dive into JavaScript, you will be using a lot of map, set, filter, which is something we didn't cover, as well as the forEach and then these anonymous functions here. Very, very useful, very helpful, and very handy.